Well, I'm going to take a cue from what you just said, that you're so excited to talk about the trust side, right? So the title of the episode that we have here is The Ultimate Trust Builder, why the story is not about you. And oh my goodness, the story that we're going to tell about that is going to be amazing. But let me backtrack just a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this challenge report and the top 3 challenges that came out of it. So the number one challenge to me was just really mind-blowing, is that internal alignment was viewed by C-suite executives. We're talking CEOs, CMOs, CROs, chief growth officers, chief experience officers. It was looked as the number one challenge to growing our business. Yet we usually look externally, right? It's the market, it's the competition, what they're doing that's keeping us back. We got to compete, we got to get out there, right? But over 70% of the responses were internal challenges, and alignment was right on the top of that. So that was challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 was that we don't have a good enough handle on the voice of our customer, and that we don't have dedicated programs to that we rely on existing business processes to talk to our customers, and we develop a great familiarity with our customers. We talk about them all the time, right? But we don't really have a true deep understanding of our customers. That was the second challenge. The third challenge was the balance between short-term and long-term. Because we all know, we go talk to the rest of the C-suite or board meetings, nobody's asking us about our long-term brand building efforts and trust building efforts. They're talking about our quota this quarter, next quarter, what are we doing? The conversation starts short-term, and there is a pull, because we know that today's brand is tomorrow's demand, right? We know that we have to work on both. So that imbalance was the third challenge. But what you each arrived on was the true hidden number one challenge. This is what Forrester actually called the number one challenge facing B2B companies. And it was a trust epidemic that we're in today. And I'm going to stop talking just a minute and let you guys talk on this. But to really paint the picture around how bad the trust epidemic is, we all know about Edelman and LinkedIn's trust barometer, right? In the most recent barometer, it showed the continuation of decades in Europe, in the United States, all over the world, decades of decline in trust, to the point where amongst 32,000 respondents, over 60% said that they think we as the selling organizations are being intentionally misleading. Intentionally misleading. Ow, right?
Ouch.
Oh my goodness. Our brands are trust marks. If we don't have trust, what do we have, right? Another study showed that the value that we provide our clients, how we demonstrate that, 74% said we don't buy it. We don't believe it. Right? So there's definitely an issue when we talk about playbooks. One of the things that Forrester said was, we have dedicated programs for lead development, right? Lead generation and sales enablement, but we very rarely have trust building campaigns and programs. We just don't think about it that way. So Lina, I'm going to ask you first to jump in here and just comment, if you could, this trust crisis, why traditional approaches don't fail when we have this kind of a trust crisis that we're facing.
Yeah, that's a big number, right? Over 60%. I think even 30% will be high. To see it over 60% is quite scary. And that's when you actually have to come together as a brand and really review if your brand is measuring to that point, to a 60%, where a buyer, here I am saying buyer, but a future customer is actually feeling that you're misleading them, then we have a big problem. That's when trust really comes through. Here, through my time, I think that experience officer, that was probably where my lights got open really big. This is when AI was starting to make a turn. It was starting to make an impact. I am all about AI. I'm all about the ability that it has to make us productive, to advance the work we're doing, even in some levels, the sentiment. What we're not going to be able to advance with AI is what we hear from our customers. And AI has a lot of different ways to actually listen to customers today. But I think the biggest problem that we have when we face trust issues is we're not sitting next to a customer. We're not talking to a customer. We are building brand and campaigns and selling points on the future of growth of the company, but we're not being real about what the value that it's really providing, that is the customer. So to me, the number one way to go almost attack this is just go get intimate with your customers. Actually, when we had our first call, the three of us, I was just sharing with the two of you that I had just come back from a New York City event. And I just last week came out from a lunch and learn from some of our customers. And all we were doing was listening to our customers, what they're going through, what they're facing. There was no agenda for us to go push things to them, their energy, their sentiment, where they're going, where they need us to go from them. And by default, the amount of trust that builds into what will happen next is absolutely incredible. Now, if I go and have one of those meetings, for example, to be tactical, and then I come out of it and nothing changes, you don't pivot, you don't think like your brand has to maybe change a little bit, the way we talk has to change because we're hearing this and they're going through this, then we're doing nothing. Right? I'm just listening and maybe I'm just going to go change my selling points, which many do. That does nothing. It goes back into the trust bucket. They eventually feel like we're misleading them because then sales is simply going to go try to make their quota. So I think what I would say overall about trust is that you do have a way of gaining that trust by being really close to customers and listening to them and understanding where they're going, what they're doing, what they're going through. And even though we have a bunch of AI capabilities to extract a lot of that for us, which we do, and it helps us a bunch when we can't be with them in person. But I think the two have to come together. I think you have to be close to your customers. Your customers have to know you. They have to know that there's a face behind who's talking to them. That person means something good for them. So I see it as a double approach. It's a traditional approach because traditional is being in person with people. So that we today call it traditional, which is crazy. And then very future approach too. Give room for AI, give room for those AI capabilities, but don't let them take over those sentiments and those feelings that you might not be able to translate fully when you're in person with the customer. That's how I'm leaving it there day to day right now.
So one of my biggest takeaways from what you're saying here is there is nothing to replace building trust in a relationship, and we're all in a relationship-based business. You cannot replace, even in the day of AI, and the promise is still evolving on what it's going to do with us. We cannot replace the one-on-one conversation and learning. And if we do, we're going to fall behind. Fantastic. Efrat, so I'd love to have you come in and weigh in on this. So please.
Yeah, so first, I completely agree. Building relationship, going back to the basic of human being relationship is absolutely what builds trust. But I have to admit, when I saw 60%, I thought that next year it will be 80 and 90% of people or companies don't trust others. And the reason for that is actually the AI devolution. Anything we see right now, including this podcast, can be mimicked by AI in seconds, right? I mean, there are so many stories. Beginning of the year, Elon Musk announced he was running to president in France. Do you remember this story? Like every French publication had him say in French, liberté, a young nerve, like in real accent. Apparently, it was a project of student in Montreal that actually did it, and it was in every French media. And it looks like Elon Musk, and there's so many examples like that. Trump, us, our CEO, you can see a video of anyone, any of us, my kids do they in 1 second, right? And it's easy and it's irrelevant and you don't know what to trust when you see. So how can I trust my agenda? How can I trust what they say? And when we look at marketing specifically, we all sound the same. It's really hard. And this is why I completely agree with Lina that it's in the end of the day, it's a relationship you have with your customers. It's not when you say that your product works and when you bring your customers together with your prospect or customers together and they talk and they sell, and then you take what you learn and actually implement it. So it's basic. It's listening, acting to them, and acknowledging the fact, in my opinion, that you cannot trust anything that you see, you hear. It's like so hard. In my opinion, the big challenge of AI, it's actually not the jobs that are changing. And we need to learn as human beings to add new value to the world, that it's not like to the old one, right? The old function we all going to be replaced, or we need to find a new way to add value. The issue is that what can I trust? And this is why I think no one trusts market deals anyway. You remember the book, All Market Deals Are Liars, right? Like that was before AI. Like, how can I trust my marketing function? Again, it's back to basic, back to relationship. And if you are selling to enterprise like us, it's easier. But what happened when you are selling to SMBs? How you build that trust? I think that's the biggest question they have. Or when you sell to consumer, how you build this trust? I mean, it's a lot of work that you need to do.